What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back. Today we're going to be back in Houdini doing some splines or curves as they're actually known, and this is going to be all about Illustrator files that you export and bring into Houdini. So first off, if you're exporting from Illustrator, make sure you set your file type to Illustrator 8. It'll give you a little warning and you can ignore that, and you'll be able to bring it into Houdini now. And the way you do that is just drop down your GeoSop, and then we're going to put down a file sop in here. So first off, I'm going to bring in a blobby logo. We're going to be looking at two different types of logos or types of shapes today. One that's going to be sort of a loose blobby shape that has got a lot of imperfections that we can edit and play with a little bit. And the second one is going to be a logo that we need to kind of respect the structure of and not smooth out or do anything out of the realms of what it already looks like. So the first one that we're going to be looking at is the blob. It's a pretty weird looking shape, but it's down there, and we need to center this. So I'm going to do a transform, move to centroid origin, which is going to move it into the center. And I'll go into the interface and I'm going to remove the reference grids, and I'm also going to go into click D to open up the display options and then turn off the origin thing. So by default it's black. I don't know why. It just happens with all Illustrator files for some reason. So I'm going to put down a color sop and turn it white, and we can already see some of the imperfections here. If I turn on the display points button, you can see that we've got some weird looking shape here that's obviously someone's messed up. Totally didn't do that intentionally, so I could insert this into the tutorial. But what we've got here is Bezier curves, and the way I know that is if I middle click on it, we can see that we've got two Bezier curves. This one here, and then the wider one that encapsulates it. And this needs to cut a hole inside our object. So we're going to be doing all that, but first off we need to turn these Bezier curves into polygons and fully represent the shape just with normal points. So the way we do that is with a convert sop. So now I've stuck that down. This will automatically convert it to polygons. So up here you've got all your options. And if you turn this up, you'll get a better representation. It doesn't really matter. It's not like you can't come back to this later down the line and update this with a higher amount or a lower amount. So this doesn't really matter, but I would say you want to try and get a decent amount of information from this. But again, we're going to be smoothing this out and doing a lot of stuff with it, so it doesn't really matter. Now we need to turn our attention to these points here and remove these. So the way I'd remove these is you could either select them like a lazy boy, or if you're an even lazier boy, you can go and actually get this done procedurally. So what I'll do is I'm going to put down a boolean, and it's by default it will cut a hole in here. And we need to do this later, but we are actually going to get rid of this hole when we're doing some extra editing. But the reason that we've done this is so we get these points here because they're inside our shape, and these will be selected when we do our next step, which is put down a group sop and change the group type to points because we want to select points. Uncheck base group so we don't get the full selection of everything, and then turn on include edges and unshared edges. And there we go. It's selected everything but these 2 points, or these, group of points. And then I can put in a delete or a blast, doesn't really matter, do the same thing. Put down a group, change it to points, and then delete non-selected. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen, no points are inside the shape anymore. And now we need to go and divide this because I want to get rid of this line here because I'm going to still edit this spline. I need to make this a bit smoother looking. So if I put down a divide, this is a really useful sop, and by default it triangulates your mesh, but we don't want that. We want to remove shared edges, and in turn it's going to add this back. So just so we can see what the spline looks like, I'm going to click escape if we've got our cursor up. Make sure you're doing this over the scene view and click W, and that will put it in wireframe mode up here. So by default we were on smooth shaded, but we wanted wireframe so we can see the spline. And then we don't have to see this monstrosity at the moment. We'll come back to this, so trust me guys. And then I'm going to fuse these points here just in case there are some really close points together or overlapping points. As you can see, we got rid of a few there. I'm clicking B to bypass it and see what's going on. So we just got some really close points removed there. And then I'm going to put down a resample, which is going to take our spline or our line and then look at the length of it between each point, and then it will say if there's not, you know, if these 2 points are a certain distance apart, it will add another one. So if you reduce this, you'll get more points. So let's get a decent amount of points in here. Maybe not too many though, because we are going to be converting this to a NURBS curve, which is essentially a Bezier curve, but it's going to smooth out these edges, and we're going to get rid of these kind of harsh little bumps and whatnot along our curve. So now that we've done that, I need to put down a convert again, which is the SOP we used right at the start to convert to a polygon. And I'm going to change this to a NURBS curve. And you might not notice it immediately, but if I turn off the display points and then I bypass this, you're going to see that we're smoothing out these points. And if I turn them back on, I'm going to show you an issue with NURBS curves and closed splines, or closed curves. So if I increase this amount, you're going to see that on this point here and this point here, we're getting this really ugly looking pinching effect. And we can fix this quite easily with a couple nodes. So if I drop down an ends SOP, what this allows us to do is take our curve and open it. So now it's not closed. You can see that is the reason that point was a culprit, is because it's the last point that in this sequence basically, and that's the one that it closes on. And you see that in both cases. And then we need to close this up, so we use another ends, and we're going to close this with close rounded. And it's still slightly lopsided. And the way we fix this is with a basis. So drop that down. If you drop a node down right onto this point, it will automatically drop it for you, and you don't have to place it. So we're going to set this to uniform. And it's not immediately obvious, but if you zoom in, you'll see what it's doing. It's fixing this point here. So that's very nice. We've now got this really nice spline curve. And then I'm going to resample this curve here to turn it back to polygons. So if you're resampling, it will automatically turn it back to polygons. So if I middle click here, you can see that we have no NURBS curves. If I go up here, we've got 2 NURBS curves. So there we go. And we're going to give it a lot of points. But maybe I want to kind of smooth this out a little bit. So that's looking pretty smooth right there. And we don't have as many nasty bits. Let's see if I go back to the fuse. There, that's what we've done. Pretty big difference, and it's looking a lot blobbier and smoother. And you can do this to any sort of curve. So if you're doing sort of reaction diffusion later down the line, that sort of stuff, you can apply this to any curve and it will make it look very nice. So now we need to turn our attention to extruding this and making and beveling this and making it look, nice. So went out of wireframe mode there by clicking W, or you can go up here and click smooth shaded. So we need to get rid of this hole here, which we will do with a hole SOP. Easy as that. So it will just take whatever is overlapping and subtract it from the main body. You can also do a Boolean, I believe, just like we did prior. But I just thought I'd make you aware of that SOP because it's cool. And now I want to extrude this, so I'm going to put down a poly extrude after this. Change the distance, drag this out a little bit, And as you can see, the back is not on automatically, so we turn that on and we've got a closed mesh now. All closed up, looking nice. And I'm going to show you two different ways of getting some good bevels. One's going to be with a subdivide, so you're going to have good topology, and the second one is going to be with a bevel, which you'll probably most likely use more often than not, just because you don't want to have too much geometry in your scene if you can help it. So let's start off with the remesh option. So I'm going to go and put down a poly extrude, and I want to just remesh, which I'll tell you about in a minute what remesh is, but I just want to remesh these faces here, the front and the back faces. So if I go on my poly extrude, you can uncheck stuff and see what it does. So back and front are the faces that we need, and luckily you can output a group for them. And this allows us to select it in pretty much any SOP, and I'll show you that now. So let's go and select back, front, and insect that, which is like an inner extrude, and then we've got our geometry here. And now what I need to just use extrude front. As you can see, I need to output that to a group, which we've done. That will overwrite the group that we've already got, and I'm going to put down a remesh, then stick the extrude front into there, and there we have it. We've got a little remesh, and what remesh does is it takes a surface and it will sort of reinterpolate it and make it all triangulated and potentially better looking. But if you turn up the iterations, it will kind of make it look a little bit better. And target edge length is what you want to reduce, but not too low, otherwise you'll crash. And now we need to subdivide it, but when we're going to subdivide, if you've subdivided before, or if you use another 3D package, it's going to smooth all the way down, and it's not going to look very nice if we don't have points there. We kind of need some more geometry here to add and sort of smooth out and create a very slight bevel. And the way I do that is with poly extrude, the first one that we did, where we created this extrusion. There's an option in here for subdivisions. We can increase it. So I'm going to increase that, and then also on your second one where you inner extrude, you could increase that as well. That's probably fine actually. Maybe just reduce that slightly, and I can even increase the subdivisions to get a nice smooth bevel. So now if I'm using the V menu there, that's so I can go and get smooth shading. You can either click up here, go smooth shaded, or you can click V, drag down, and smooth shaded. So there we go. We've got no dodgy topology. It's all looking very nice. No dodgy normals. It's all flush. And to kind of sort out this mess, we click L over here, and it will fix the layout of it. And now I'll show you the bevel, and then we'll get on to doing the logo. So I'm just going to reuse our poly extrude here that we did, and then I'm going to throw down a poly bevel, and I'm going to go to shading. That was V, and then I want flat wire shaded so we see lines, and then I'm going to increase this. As you can see, it's beveling every line. We need to just set it to like 40 degrees so we'll only get these sharp edges here. So now that we've done that, I'm going to change this to round, increase this slightly, and now we've got our nice bevel. I'm going to go back to smooth shaded just to highlight this disgusting issue we've got going on here. Now we could remesh this face, or we can inner extrude this face slightly. So what I mean is this face here, I'm going to drag slightly in. And unfortunately, we can't use these two groups here that we've created, because it's going to use, I'll demonstrate what it does. Let's just throw a remesh down to kind of show. At first glance, it's fine, but it's actually connecting to lower down points because we've actually added geometry after we've created these groups. So if I delete that, you'll see we've actually got more geometry there that we've actually just written over. See that? And we don't want that. Luckily, there's actually an even more reliable way of creating these groups, which I'll show you now, which is we just create a group SOP, and then we're gonna select primitives. We don't want the base group, and we want, I'll change the name to faces, and I'm gonna select by normals. And then if you turn the spread angle down to 0, you'll see that it's selected on Z, sorry, it's selected the backmost face. If we increase this, we'll get increasingly more selection, but we just want the absolute minimum selection here on this normal that is facing backwards on Y, or Z, sorry. And now we need to select the front face, which is very easy. What I'm doing there is I'm just alt dragging, sorry. That's what I did over here. I forgot to mention that. If you do Control C, Control V, it does the same thing. I'm going to plug these in, and then what I need to do -1, and we're going to get that selection, but where's our other one? And we've overwritten it. That's what this does. Initial merge replace, but we want to union, and we'll get both faces selected. So now that we've done that, we can either add a remesh and use our faces group as the group in here, or to create less geometry, we can put down a poly extrude, select faces, and then increase the insect amount like that. That's our inner extrude, by the way. Does it on both sides. If I bypass this, you'll see it. You see it's doing its magic. And now, if I go back to smooth shaded, you'll see that we don't have that issue anymore. And if I bypass that, let's put down a null so we don't see that that yellow selection. Oh, we do. Okay, that's funky. Anyway, it's fixing it. You can see that. And now we're moving on to our logo. Put down another file SOP. And I'm going to center this. I know you're excited to see what logo it is. Ba-bam! It's my own logo. I'm going to put down color now. Do the same thing. And essentially we're just doing the same thing again with convert. So I don't even think we needed to do that because this is already, it's already polygons, but better safe than sorry. If I was to move this about, we're not going to get any increases in our point amount because we aren't transforming from anything, we're already in polygons. And now I'm going to fuse these points just in case we've got any overlapping ones. It's always good practice to fuse stuff after you've done some mad stuff to it. And then I'm going to put down a poly extrude. Extrude it, and then I want to bevel this edge. So it's essentially going to be like the setup we just did with beveling and then extruding in. Let's go to our smooth shading so we can see what's going on. And I turned off the display points option. Turn on ignore flat edges. I'm going to set it to 40 degrees, and there we have it, the masterpiece. The ugly geometry has been created. I'm going to set this to round, increase the divisions. And we've got this ugly face on this, disgusting. I need to close this up. So again, I might just copy this from before, but actually let's just run through it again. So we use a group SOP, selecting primitives, uncheck base group, and then select keep normals. We selected the back face. I'm going to rename the group to faces. Alt drag, plug these back in. Do -1 to select the other side and union. And then we do our poly extrude to finish things off. Select the group, faces, and then insect this very slightly. I just went into wireframe mode, by the way, shortcut W over here. So that's that. Now we've got our logo. And that's pretty much it. I would recommend looking into ends and join as well. I didn't explain join, but join is very good as well. That's another useful one. And I'll go into depth about how to kind of trace these lines and sweep them as well later down the line, but that's also quite simple. So yeah, any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.